Having said this, I would like to read a chapter from my novel. This chapter is called From a Courtesan to Wedding Vows. Here, essentially, Megha has just announced to her parents that she is marrying an American. So the dad is all in flutters. He's devastated. He comes from a lineage of so-called royalty. He's not royalty. He thinks he is. And his wife, she's the sane one in the family. She calms him and explains to him, hey, it is okay. Megha knows what she is doing. So let me read the chapter, please. Balram Pallavan was devastated. He felt a slow nagging pain in his chest. His left arm ached. He maneuvered his mind and played with its cortex and neurons until he felt a scam of a heart attack. He paddled in a bit of self-pity, thought how the world, his wife and daughter have all been unfair to him. He could make the world a worthier place. On God, he had no reign. He could have been more benevolent to him. After all, he had not failed him in any way. He had been a splendid son, a productive husband, an adoring father, and a morally straight citizen. He had not committed any sins, significant or small. His prior life sins were taxing his current one. He could have been a wild bull in his preceding life, chasing and tormenting less barbaric creatures. Or, as a locomotive stylish bull, he could have stolen his best friend's best-looking cow. At least, he should be born well in his next birth. His only daughter, Megha, had just announced her marriage plans. She was marrying an American and would not return to him. Anjali, his wife, walked up to him with his afternoon cup of hot tea and spicy onion bhajiyas that he liked to have in the weekend. She sensed a storm coming. It is hot today. We should turn the air conditioning on, he said. We could turn it on, Anjali said, wiping the liquid sweat that was streaming down. The sweat was a part of her, just like the jasmines in her hair, or the thali, the wedding chain on her neck. She did not feel it. She thrived in the heat. Everything in the vicinity, including trees, flower pots in the terrace, and the clothesline, were expanding. In response to the heat, Chennai in its magnificent and dangerous summer. How could Megha do this to us? I spent a lifetime designing her every move, chose her schools and courses. I used to buy her a new dress every day until she turned 13, so she felt special, my only child. She's not beautiful. I procure these wonderful matches for her. She turns them down. What will my relatives think of me and my role as a father? I have nothing left. Distinguished ancestry, Anjali murmured under her breath. Her face turned a pale purple. It was true that she chose a husband of her own free will. However, she was under no illusions about him. Balram's birthplace is a small town, and its residents undoubtedly recognize him when he visits the grey ancestral home. Balram and his 115 relatives bask in flimsy reflected glory, she thought. She coughed nervously, wondering if he could hear her thoughts. He could turn active at the drop of a turban, especially when conversations hovered around his relatives or his township. She imagined a picture of her husband wearing his turban, adorned with strings of pearls, hiding his elongated eyes. brandishing his bronze and steel sword at her with a "Hail ho Idayanagar," donning tight red stretch pants with an elastic waist, a pink embroidered shirt that resembled a frock up to his thighs, sporting 3 thick gold chains, heavy bracelets, a ring the size of a lemon on each finger, for good measure, much like one of Alexander Dumas' heroes, Artho, Partho, Arami, and Balram. She tried to look dignified, nurturing these delightful thoughts. Her husband collected swords, single and double-edged, in arsenic copper, alpha bronze, and stainless steel. He never touched them for fear of being injured. She cleaned them when he asked and brought them over to him to look at, feel the air above, and admire. Balram stood up and started pacing the room, up and down, his body heaving. He was in an effusive mood. This was Saturday. There was all the time in the world for his wife to hear his chronicles. He munched on one golden brown bhajia. "Do you know the story of my great-grandmother, the Rani?" "Of course I do." Anjali began to squeak and bit her tongue. "The Rani was brought up in our town more than a century ago. It was said that red roses paled in comparison to her smooth cheeks, and lily-white lotuses wilted in shame in comparison to her eyes. An accomplished woman, many eminent men wanted her hand in marriage." He clapped. He walked over and sat bouncing vigorously next to his wife. She felt herself bouncing in unison, and her mood cheered up. "Why, the Rani was more beautiful than our own Megha. Don't you see a striking resemblance? Megha is equally accomplished, but she wears skin-tight clothes, leaving me for a foreign country. And now this." "Ka, ka, ka," strummed the happy crows in harmony, in a choir, to endorse him. Some even flew closer to the window. Anjali thought the crows were singing at her husband in amazed joy. "Oh, my dear Balram, you have conveniently forgotten that the queen came from a family of merry concubines. The queen was fortunately saved from a life of physical exploitation. Granted, she excelled at what she did, but her progeny were not the rightful heirs to the kingdom. After decades of extravagance that had been the norm with royal families, the only direct descendant of the king, you, my dear Balram, are an ordinary man. We are an ordinary family," she thought. She added to herself, "Megha needs no antiquated ancestry behind her. There's a purpose in all our lives. Let her define hers." Balram drew his eyebrows close in an arc. "Will they ask for dowry?" He looked at his wife, mystified. "No, Balram, no dowry." A neighbor popped in at the critical time, having smelt the delicious bhajia. "Come on in, Major. You're just in time for tea." The Major, whose only claim to service in the armed forces was a 1.5-inch wide, 4-inch long mustache that he cherished much like Hercule Poirot, was not a major. He heroically pretended to be one. "Our dear Megha is finally getting married. She had always been a rebel. If I were you, I wouldn't have allowed it." Rubbing salt into the invisible wound, Anjali scratched her nose hard. She saw her neighbor's mustache glistening from a fresh coat of dye. As he was having his coffee, a green-shaded thin long string, and not dark brown as it should have been, started seeping into the beverage from his mouth. "Major, your mooch is swimming in the coffee," she said. It's not safe to drink it now, with the dye coming into it. He quickly pulled it up, and ouch! The hot coffee drops landed on his body's most tender spot. He spilt more of the hot liquid. Ouch! He hurriedly left, saying his wife must be missing him. Anjali had to quickly muster up all her resources and program the labyrinthine wedding of her only daughter. She had 4 weeks for the details, since Megha made the announcement one fine morning, giving them no time to think. The Pallavan family was known for its fiery hospitality, even in the face of its fading glory. There was the added stress of getting to know the bridegroom's family. Will I be able to pick appropriate dresses for them? Will they like the complex, spicy, blood-stirring cuisine of the South? The arrangements with more than a touch of ethnicity? I must stop sighing. I will do it, just like I've done other things in my life, she decided. The Myers and a handful of their relatives and friends arrived a week before the wedding. They were placed in one of the finest 5-star hotels in the city, overlooking slums and effectively shielded from the sultriness. The Myers and the Pallavan families got to know each other to the point of overcoming the initial awkwardness. At first, there were deep-rooted silences between the families, with plain nods, slight smiles, veiled glances, fleeting feelings, bubbling tensions, like in two sparring camps. Balram wondered about the long, unruly tresses and the nonchalance of Giovanni Myers, and Gio found the former's name unpronounceable. Was it Balram, Baleram, or Balram? Unable to bear the heat, Gio donned himself in cotton tees and shorts during day and night. Unused to such display, the older ladies from the township in Balram's family gasped at the sight of his strong, naked legs and secretly giggled. Gio began to address Balram as Bolly. Man Bolly, can I have a cold beer? Or Man Bolly, can I have some climate therapy with a top-notch cocktail? Bolly got accustomed to his new name and to Gio, but not to Elaine. Elaine was surprised by her son's choice when he brought the young woman home and introduced her to the family. She thought the girl was incredibly attractive, in a provincial fashion, undeniably provincial. She also concluded her son could have married better. He could have had a lovely, accomplished peer from an affluent business family. Elaine was careful not to reveal her thoughts. She knew that Jason was resilient when he made his decisions. Balram, on his part, could not understand Elaine and had no desire to. Anjali gave away her closely guarded, never disclosed recipe of chicken biryani. The biryani was baked with thin, long-grained fluffy rice, filled with aromatic flavors of saffron, milk, ghee, a paste made with a horde of spices, and succulent marinated chicken pieces. Another recipe of kofta curry, tender balls floating in creamy gravy, was traded for that of Pennsylvania Dutch-style cheesecake. The ladies struck a chord. They participated in lunches and dinners. The joys of food and drink overtook their inhibitions that had existed silently. Known and unknown relatives of all ages, sizes, and shapes arrived. They stayed wherever they could. Best friends came with excitement and joy. Hiyoshi and Tammy flew in from America. Rebecca managed to come just in time for the wedding. Abhi and Nawaj were conspicuously absent. There was no looking back for Jason. From the first time he set his eyes upon Megha, he knew that if he ever married, it would have to be the woman with the soulful eyes. He felt lost in their voluminous chasm and redeemed in love. Megha accepted his proposal with no misgivings and with grace. She recognized Jason was her destiny. Long months of anguish came to a thrilling, crescendoing end. Love had been no tender thing to her. She had alternated between despondency and hope, treading an unfulfilled, thorn-ridden path. Yet the thrilling end was only the beginning. The wedding dome and the wedding hall were decorated with lilies and roses. For purity and love, shimmering bronze statues were placed for good luck. Brass lamps were lit for light in their lives. Incense sticks were burning, emanating a subtle perfume that brought in an ethereal feeling. The priest chanted, Dharmecha, Arthecha, Kamecha, Mokshecha, Nati Charami. I will not impose on you in matters of duty, money, and desire. I stand by you in pursuit of righteousness, desire, and salvation. Mangalyam tantuna mema, mama jivana hetuna. I tie the sacred thread that is essential for my long life. The 3 knots of the thread of the golden necklace with black beads were tied around the bride's lovely neck. The marriage ritual was completed. Yellow rice and flowers were heaped on them for blessings. The holy fire burned steadily in the center of the decked mandap. Flames and smoke from the wedding fire and the heat outside were turning Jason's face red. Yet he shone. There were more chants from the priest, more rituals, and he sat through it all patiently, wearing a pure silk white designer sherwani and a tranquil smile. The mantras imparted a meaning to him, and he felt their power and ascendancy over his stars. The chants were elemental at the inception of his married life. They transcended boundaries and blessed him with the resplendence of love and intimacy. The vibrations surrounded him and hoisted him beyond his rationale. He felt this moment was a beginning that was beyond rituals. A poem from Emma Lazarus came to Megha's mind. Music and silver chimes and sunlit air, freighted with the scent of honeyed orange flower, she, with cloud-like cast-back veil and faint flushed cheek, in bridal beauty, moves as in a trance, noting the misty eyes, the grave sweet brow. Welcome, Mrs. Megha Myers. Thank you.